What's up? I am Natasha Bryant, and you're watching Speak Like Transformation TV. Another episode of Therapy Unveiled. Therapy Unveiled is an opportunity for me to share with you topics that I talk with my clients about in therapy sessions with the hopes that you too can learn tips and strategies to live your best life. Today's episode is about emotional eating. And I decided to talk about this because one, you don't really hear a lot about emotional eating. It's not really a discussion that's talked about. And so I wanted to take a moment to discuss a little bit about emotional eating. And let me tell you how this came up. I recently had a session with my client, and we've been working on motivation, increasing her motivation, and being able to follow through on her goals when it comes to a healthy lifestyle. And so recently she has been consistent with following a healthy routine. She's been feeling really good about it. And I was just challenging her to recognize that there's gonna be times when you fall off. There's gonna be times when that energy, that motivation you have dies out. And then you might have a bad moment, a bad day, which could lead you canceling the day altogether. And so she gave an example of when she decided to emotionally eat. She was feeling really stressed, and she went the opposite direction of her diet, of her healthy eating style, and decided to eat something unhealthy because she was under stress. And she was able to recognize that's exactly what it was emotional eating, but wasn't really sure and didn't really recognize how and why that even happened. What was the whole purpose of the emotional eating? And so that's what I want to share today. What is the function, right? Because every behavior has a function, and there are advantages and disadvantages of every behavior. And a lot of times we don't talk about the advantages because it's usually, especially if it's a behavior that is unhelpful, we don't really talk about the advantages because we're more focused on how to change the behavior, how to fix the behavior, and not recognizing, well, let's talk about, well, why I even like it. What am I getting out of it? What about it do I enjoy that's causing me to keep doing this thing that for the most part is unhelpful? And so let's talk about emotional eating. The advantages of emotional eating. One, you immediately get relief from the pain, the emotional pain that you're feeling, right? So my client, when she decided to eat unhealthy, she immediately felt better. She was like, I wanted this because I wanted to feel better, right? And that's really one of the main functions of emotional eating is I feel horrible. I feel depressed or sad, stressed, frustrated, right? Whatever that emotion is, and I want to relief from this. I want to get rid of this emotion. I want to feel good. Right now, I don't feel good, and I want to feel good. And this type of food, this food that I'm thinking about is going to make me feel good. And that's why I want to do it. So that's the one thing. You immediately get a relief from that emotion. And then the second thing is you immediately begin to have a more fulfilling emotion. You immediately begin to feel a more positive emotional connection, right? And then the second thing about the emotional eating, and this can vary, it varies from person to person, but another thing with emotional eating is for some, it is a way of escape, right? If I eat this, then I escape what's really bothering me. Then I'm more focused on this good food that I'm eating. Who cares if it's fattening? Who cares if it's outside of my diet? But I'm able to escape what the real problem is, right? And that's the other function, is it helps me avoid having to deal with the stress that is really going on. It helps me have to avoid processing how I really truly feel, because now I'm just focused on the food and it's making me feel good. So those are just two examples of some advantages. And then the disadvantages are you're not actually addressing the issue, right? So you're getting that immediate feel-good response, right? That pleasure center in your brain is immediately being activated, is immediately being satisfied, right? But it doesn't last, right? How often have you ate something, it felt good in the moment, you're like, yes, this is so good. Every bite, you're just like, And then when it's all done, an hour later, sometimes for some 10 minutes later, you're just like, oh, why did I just eat that? And there's guilt, there's shame, and or that problem is still there. So you've ate, you felt good in that moment, and then an hour later, 2 days later, a day later, you got to deal with that same problem. And then what happens? The emotional eating starts again. So it starts this cycle. And so because the problem is never addressed, you end up going to this quick fix, because the emotional eating is a quick fix. You go to this quick fix, which is this food I like, or, going into these types of, some go into binge eating, right? And it's this quick fix. In the moment, I'll feel good and I'll get rid of, right, this pain, but it's never being addressed, right? And then another disadvantage is that it's very impulsive. Like, emotional eating is an impulsive reaction, because you just want to deal with what you want right now. I want to feel good right now. And this type of food, this thing I've been craving for, will help me feel good right now. So it's very impulsive, and it doesn't allow you to really think about or care about the long-term consequences. Long-term meaning like an hour, 2 hours later. Long-term meaning days later, weeks later, months later, right? And so even with my client, we were talking about how in the moment it felt really good to have that type of food she wanted. But then long term, it pulls her away from her overall goal, which is to lose weight, which is to have more energy, which is to be able to to follow a healthy routine, right? And so it ends up pulling away from your overall goals, which then impacts other areas of your life as well. It impacts your self-esteem, impacts your motivation, etc. And so that is another disadvantage, is that it is impulsive. And so it's causing you just to focus on this immediate need and not really looking at the long-term effects. And so how do we overcome overeating, right? We understand the function, we understand the impacts of it, but how do I overcome it, Natasha? Like, what do I do? Well, one thing, and then my client and I worked on this. I helped her work through this, and the scenario she gave me, I helped her step by step work through how to do this. But the first thing is to focus on the emotional regulation, right? And what is emotional regulation? Emotional regulation is when you're able to feel your emotion and control it, regulate it, respond to it in a way that helps you be in control of how you respond to the emotion, right? It helps you be able to recognize and process the emotion. That's what emotional regulation is all about. And so when we're engaging in emotional eating, right, we're not actually regulating our emotions. At that moment, our emotions are controlling us. I feel stressed. I feel frustrated. I feel shamed. I feel depressed. I feel disappointed, whatever that emotion is. And it's, I feel this way and I just want to deal with this feeling, right? I feel this way, so I deserve this X food, right? And so the emotion is driving the behavior. The emotion is motivating, influencing the behavior, right? You're not necessarily thinking logically in that moment, okay, what really is going to help me deal with this problem? You're thinking more within your emotion, right? And so how to regulate that is, first things is thinking about, okay, wait, I'm thinking about eating X food and I'm realizing I'm doing this because of how I feel. I feel stressed, and so I want to eat this ice cream, or I want to eat these donuts, or I want to have this cheesesteak, or I want to binge and have a whole bunch of food right now, right? Whatever that is, right? Ask yourself, wait a minute, why? Why do I even want to derail myself off of my goals? Why do I even want to engage in this self-sabotaging behavior? Because it is self-sabotaging, and let me tell you why. Because like I said before, a lot of times after we go through our emotional eating, we end up feeling ashamed, we end up feeling disappointed in ourselves, right? And then that upset feeling starts all over again. So again, in the moment we were feeling good, but as soon as we're done, we're back to feeling bad all over again, either because we're feeling shameful or disappointed in ourselves for engaging in that unhealthy behavior, that unhealthy eating, and or we still gotta deal with the same problem. Again, it's still there, and then we're back to feeling upset, right? So it's asking ourselves, well, why? Why do I even want to engage? And so the example with my client was, she was feeling frustrated. I'm feeling frustrated right now, right? Well, why are you feeling frustrated? I'm feeling frustrated because I feel burnt out at work. That's the problem. I feel burnt out at work. Now, is eating this unhealthy food going to help you feel less burnt out? No. It's gonna help you deal with the frustration. I feel frustrated right now in this moment, right? So I just want to eat whatever I want to eat, right? But you're still gonna feel burnt out when you get off your lunch break, when you go back to work the next day. The burnout is still gonna be real, right? And then you just go back to the emotional eating all over again. So I challenge her to think about, well, how do you solve the issue of burnout? Let's talk about that. Because right now, the emotional eating is just helping you solve the issue of frustration, but not helping you solve the actual problem, which is you feel overworked in the workplace. And then once you solve that problem, right, then that frustration lessens, because now you're not going to feel so frustrated because you solved the problem of burnout, because you're not feeling burnout anymore, right? And so that's what I challenge you to do. I challenge you to think about in those moments when you are engaging in emotional eating, ask yourself, wait. Before I even engage in this food, right? Before I even do something I know I'm going to probably end up feeling disappointed in myself about or shameful about, let me ask myself, why? Why do I even want to engage in this? What's really going on? Emotional regulation. Identify the emotion. Identify what it is that you're feeling, right? And then the cause. Why am I feeling this way? And then the solution. Well, what is a healthy way? What is a solution that's actually going to help solve this problem, not solve this impulsive emotion that I'm feeling? Emotional eating helps you deal with the emotion, but not with the problem. Helps you solve and get rid of the emotion, but it does not help you solve and get rid of the problem. And so I hope that was helpful for you. I hope that was helpful when it comes to figuring out how to deal with emotional eating. And let me tell you, no food is a bad food or good food. All foods are great because they give you the energy and store your body. You just got to do it in moderation, right? So I'm not a dietitian. I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not saying that these certain foods are bad and certain foods are good. But what I am saying is that if you have a goal, right, and you recognize that the emotional eating is going to take you away from that goal, and it's only really helping you solve the emotion you're experiencing right now, which is what emotional eating is all about, then pause on choosing that behavior, on choosing that food, on choosing on eating to deal with your emotion, and figure out a better way that's actually going to help you solve the problem. So I look forward to doing another video, seeing you guys again. But until then, make sure you be bold, be safe, and speak life.